This week, Memphis hosted the leader of the reform movement in Israel, Rabbi Gilad Kariv, just for a day, for a few meetings. Rabbi Kariv, the executive director of the Israel Movement for Progressive Judaism, an acclaimed constitutional lawyer, shared with Memphis rabbis his take on the status of intra-religious dialogue in Israel, that is, dialogue between and among Jews of all streams. He offered us an in-depth look at the compromise reached with the Israeli government regarding egalitarian prayer at the Western Wall, and his insights were invaluable considering the fact that he was one of the primary players in reaching that agreement. One of the most compelling pieces of wisdom he offered us, though, had nothing to do with the Western Wall exactly, or Reform Judaism exactly, or the conflict between Israelis and Palestinians exactly, though he talked about all of these issues. His most profound observation, I believe, came from his work as the leader of a movement, an active player in a major political party, and a tireless civil servant in Israel. He looked around the Temple Israel conference room on Tuesday that contained rabbis from all major denominations of Judaism, Orthodox, Conservative, Reform. And he said, this gathering couldn't happen in Israel right now. He said, our greatest security threat, the greatest challenge to our existence, is that we seem to have forgotten how to have what he and our tradition call machlochet l'shem shamayim, a righteous argument had for the sake of heaven, a constructive conflict. He said that in his work, political parties and religious groups have become so splintered, have dug their heels in so staunchly, have become such bad listeners that they can't even have a discussion in which real differences are hashed out. And he reminded all those present that finding a framework for such discussions, such righteous arguments, finding a way to have them in which the voices of the conflicting sides are heard clearly is our greatest challenge and our most important step toward protecting democracy in Israel. His words, though, transcend that rabbinic gathering he was addressing, and they transcend the political turmoil in our Jewish homeland. They speak to this moment in our American democracy as well. The most terrifying element of our political process, the element that creates the possibility for completely unqualified and demagogic figures to gain power, is that we have ceased to honor, as a country, a righteous argument offered for the sake of heaven. As election frenzy picks up, we see candidates tearing each other to shreds, undermining one another as human beings, desperately searching for each other's missteps, rather than addressing the arguments, fleshing them out, really listening to one another and responding to the concerns expressed by the person across the aisle. This week's Torah portion, Mishpatim, includes these famous and confusing words uttered by the Israelites after Moses reads to them from the Torah for the first time. The Torah says, Vayikach sefer habrit, vayikra be'oznei ha'am, vayomru kol asher diber Adonai na'aseh v'nishma. And Moses took the book of the covenant and read it in the hearing of the people, read it in the ears of the people, and they said, all that God has spoken, we will do and we will hear. Na'aseh v'nishma. We will do and we will shema. We will listen. We will hear. What can this mean, our commentators ask? Why the strange order, doing and then listening? Surely it must be the other way around. Listen first and then do. That's the normal order of things. And the ink spent explaining this strange wording in the Torah is truly remarkable. One interpretation, so relevant and poignant at this moment, is the following. Na'aseh means we will obey. That is, we will do what is right. But we will also nishma. We will continue to listen, to continue to hear God's voice outright and God's voice that resides in the words of other people. With these words, our ancestors indicate that they're ready, our rabbis explain, to listen constantly for more revelation than what was given in the Torah at that moment, for finding God in more places than just the ones they already expect God to be. This verse is our commitment as a people, the first time we ever hear words of Torah, to seek revelation and to seek inspiration, righteousness, and God's voice throughout our lives, even as we act and do with a fully formed understanding of what God wants from us. We shall do and we shall hear, another commentator writes, means that we are ready by being ready to listen. We are ready for the infinite possibilities that emerge from being in relationship with other people. The logic behind this interpretation is that simply acting, simply doing, charging ahead like a steamroller, doing what we know God wants us to do, can cause a loss. And that loss is our ability to listen, to hear. And then we may miss the possibilities for further enlightenment that emerge from other people. Perhaps this is why the most famous Hebrew word, aside from the regular mazel tov and l'chaim and shalom, is shema. Listen. Being able to engage with other people at all times, especially people who disagree with us, is one of our tradition's main concerns. It is so terrified that we will lose our power of hearing and listening and understanding other people's words. What can we do then to live up to this legacy that elevates listening to a holy act, a mitzvah? We can practice the art of listening in our private lives, especially when the words that are being said are hard to hear and being uttered by someone we disagree with. We can, when engaging in political conversations, elevate the argument and avoid tearing down the person just to undermine his or her words, rather remaining on that high ground staked out by our Torah. And we must demand, whenever possible, that our politicians, our governmental leaders, and our media do the same. The smearing of individuals for political gain is unworthy of our American heritage, and it is directly adverse to our Jewish values as well. We Jews are famous for never shying away from an argument, and we treasure that legacy, I think. But another of our Jewish legacies, the one that matters much more than just being willing to disagree, is being willing to engage in a machlochet l'shem shamayim, the righteous kind of argument, the constructive kind of conflict, the kvetching that actually stands for something holy. And that is our responsibility and my prayer this Shabbat. Shabbat shalom.